Welcome to Hoop Jeans. I'm Tony Cella alongside Matt Horner. Every episode we bring you inside the world of British basketball, sharing stories from the people who make our game special. We're talking to players, coaches and dedicated volunteers who pour their heart into the sport that we love.
At Hoop Jeans, we believe every voice in our basketball community matters. Join us as we share the stories of British basketball, one conversation at a time. Visit hoopjeans.com and be part of the journey.
So let's talk about us a bit, shall we?
Okay.
I know you love doing that, being centre of attention. So tell us more about your basketball start and what drew you to it in the first place, because it's not, well, to be completely honest, it's not like British basketball's a foundation of British sport, is it?
No, not at all.
And obviously when you were growing up, way back when,
thank you.
it's not, you didn't really have the kind of facilities and the things we've got now to be able to kind of gain an interest in the sport and to be able to follow it as religiously as some people want to.
No, absolutely right. I first became interested in basketball in the early 1980s. I know.
Years and years ago.
And these are the days where, before satellite TV, before internet, and the only sport you would see on TV would be on Grandstand on a Saturday afternoon, or World of Sport if you like the wrestling on ITV.
Right. I was about to say, I know World of Sport, but I had no idea what Grandstand was. That sounds a bit horse racing to me.
Well, it did just have some horse racing.
Oh,
on
did it?
Yeah.
Right, so I wasn't completely wrong thinking that.
But occasionally on Grandstand they would show some British basketball. And if it was a cup final or one of the most exciting tournaments they would show would be what's called the World Invitational Club Basketball Championship or something.
Rolls off the tongue there.
Yeah, WICB.
Okay,
is
that's
what it
better,
was.
yeah.
Yeah, and that was held, I think, between Christmas and New Year at Crystal Palace.
Okay.
And it was 2-3 day tournament, and they would have some of the top British teams and European teams. Sometimes they would mix it and there would be an international team. I think one year the Russian national team played. I know. And they would also have teams made up of like touring American players.
Okay.
There used to be a team called Athletes in Action, which was made up of players who weren't playing in any other leagues. But it was like a showcase for them, and then they could... a couple of players from that ended up playing in the British League and doing really well.
Oh, so they got help them get picked up then?
Yeah, exactly that.
Oh, that's quite cool.
So sometimes on Grandstand they would show basketball, and I used to enjoy watching it.
Yeah.
And one of the big players at the time, or one of the most popular players at the time, was a little guy called Alton Byrd, little American guard who used to play for Crystal Palace.
Right.
And he was really exciting to watch. So he was small, he could shoot, he was quite flashy with the ball, and he was an exciting player. He ended up being probably the most legendary player in British basketball history. He played for a long time over here, and he won lots of championships with lots of different teams.
Yeah.
So he played for Crystal Palace, and I was living in Brighton at the time. And so there was a rivalry because Brighton had a team in the National League. Yeah. Crystal Palace was one of the best teams. Brighton had just come up, so they'd joined the top division. I think they'd finished second or maybe won the second division the previous year.
Yeah.
So this was their first year playing in the top league of British basketball. And it just so happened that around my 12th birthday, I think, Brighton were due to play Crystal Palace in basketball at the Brighton Centre.
All right, okay.
So my dad, don't think anyone else, don't think my mum came. He took me to watch this game at the Brighton Centre, and I was really excited because I could see Alton Byrd playing live.
Yeah.
And
was the TV in black and white or was it colour at this point? Just checking.
Well, yeah, it's not even that funny.
It's actually an honest question.
The coverage was in colour.
Right, okay, cool.
I did used to have a black and white TV in my room.
Okay.
However, edit that out. So me and my dad went to see Brighton against Crystal Palace at the Brighton Centre. And Brighton at the time had a little also had a little guard called Robin Farris, little American guy who ended up being a really successful women's college coach.
Okay.
I think he coached in the same place for 35 years or something. Anyway, so we're there to see this game. Really excited. It's Alton Byrd. Game starts. Crystal Palace heavy favourites, and after probably no more than 5 minutes, Alton Byrd, I think, ran into one of his own players, knocked himself out.
Oh, what?
So he was taken off on a stretcher.
Yeah.
And that was it. So that was the end of my Alton Byrd experience at that point. So I think Palace still won easily because they were very good. But despite that, despite seeing the guy I wanted to see knocked out after a few minutes and seeing the team I wanted to win lose, I really enjoyed it.
I mean, to be fair, it's quite a memorable experience, isn't it?
It was, yeah. It was because me and my dad would generally go to football when Brighton were at home on Saturday.
Yeah.
And Brighton at that point, they were going up through the leagues. It was an exciting time. Well, at that point, they were in what was the old First Division, now the Premiership.
Yeah.
And it's the first time they've been in there. But football in the early 80s was a completely different vibe. It was
I can imagine.
It was quite sinister and quite intimidating. Crowds were down because of all the issues around the game.
Yeah.
So being able to watch sport indoors in a safe environment, in a much more intimate environment because you're closer to what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
Was really good. So I really enjoyed it. And followed them for the next year. So I'd go to Brighton Centre whenever we could.
Yeah.
And that was it really. I was hooked. Having seen some live basketball, I was really into it.
Had you started playing in between first watching it on TV and your first actual game experience? Like, did you have a ball at this point where you just practicing dribbling or going to a park or something like that? Or was it kind of that was like a bit of a changing moment for you in thinking this is a sport I really care about?
So that the following Christmas, so that would be kind of the middle of the following season.
Yep.
My mum and dad bought me a hoop and a ball, and strangely enough, they had bought these presents for me from a sports shop owned by the guy who owned Brighton Bears at that point. It's a guy called Dave Goss who used to play for Brighton in their early days, and he'd helped set up the club, and he ran a sports shop and a gym in Brighton, I think.
Nice.
I actually still play with one of his sons' old man masters hoops, so that's quite nice.
It's quite interesting hearing it's being passed on through the families like that. It's quite cool.
Yeah, both his sons played. I think his older son played for Brighton, and his younger son, who is Paul, who I play with now, he played for mid Sussex when they had a National League team, I think.
Nice,
right.
okay.
Yeah, really nice guy. So mum and dad had gone to buy this hoop and this ball, and a Brighton Bears bag and a T-shirt and a sweatshirt. And when they were buying it in the sports shop, one of the players was in there, a guy called Pete Mullings, 6'9". I think he'd play for Sunderland, he'd play for Great Britain. So he signed this ball.
No way.
So it said, "Happy Christmas, Matthew," from Pete Mullings.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so...
were you afraid to play with the ball then? Because obviously it had someone's signature on it.
Yeah, no, just wanted to get out there.
You were like, oh, it's nice, but I'm just going to crack on anyway.
No, I needed to get out there. But I remember when I was a bit younger, going to a birthday party, and one of my friends got a basketball. Yeah. And it was like a really exotic present because you wouldn't have them at school.
No, of course not.
It was like, wow, look at this. And all the kids were running around bouncing this ball like crazy. But yeah, so to get hoops, get balls, pretty cool present. And it used to be attached to the side of the house, so I'll be out there every night. It was semi-detached house banging away.
Yeah, of course.
Little patio banging the ball
just
off
that
the
vibration
wall.
Going through the wall every single time.
Yeah, so my parents are very patient with that.
Because as much as you'd probably like to say it was swish every time, it probably was a few bank shots at least.
No, and I'd be out there in the snow and in the rain.
Yeah,
and your hands would be getting mucky because of the dirt coming off the ball. But I used to love it. So that was how I got into it. Luckily enough, I lived in an area in Brighton where there was a National League team.
Yeah.
So you get to see the best players in Britain.
Yeah.
So it's good. It was a long time ago, but it was Brighton Centre back then, and was a good venue for basketball.
And how did you go from obviously just throwing the ball up against and at the hoop next to the house? How did you end up getting into actually playing? Because obviously it's so much easier to get into sports like cricket, football, rugby out here because there's so many youth setups for it.
Yeah.
How did you kind of go from just playing it casually to actually wanting to play it competitively?
Well, that took quite a long time because we moved out of Brighton just after that Christmas, actually, because my dad got a job at Gatwick. So we moved to mid-Sussex, to Burgess Hill. And so I changed school. And at that time, there wasn't much in the way of organised school sports because the teachers were on strike quite a lot. And so they wouldn't do any out-of-hours activities because they wanted to get paid more money, and they didn't want to do more than they had to do as a way of drawing attention to their plight. So there wasn't much in the way of playing against other schools because nothing was happening after school. So I didn't play any organised basketball until I was at sixth form.
Oh, right, okay.
So when I was 17, 18 years old. So none at school. We occasionally we would do basketball in PE.
Yeah.
But it was, it's just part of the curriculum then. So it wasn't seriously organised.
Okay, so we'll go back to that in a sec, but just to go, so what was you doing in that period then? Was it just you and a couple friends that you made who just so happened to like basketball and you just play with each other, or was it just kind of, playing horse on your own kind of thing?
It was, pretty much just playing in the back garden. Some of my friends would come over and we'd play, but it was a small back garden, so there wasn't a lot of room, and most of it was grass. A little bit of it was patio. Yeah. So you're not bouncing the ball on the grass. So
fair.
And the basket was not in the middle. The way the house was, the basket had to be over to the left.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even in the middle of the patio. So I'd shoot a lot more from the right hand side of the basket than the left.
How is that with your game now? Do you reckon there's still part of it that is leaning towards that? Because that's literally how you started off.
I miss as much from either side.
Yeah,
so,
that's pretty fair. So then how was it feeling actually getting into play in sixth form and it to be in a competitive way? So actually getting onto a court and having a bit more structure to a play rather than just, actually having a hoop that was centre might be a difference.
That was good. It was, again, it wasn't a priority sport at the college, but there were some guys from the year up who I think had played for Brighton Bears juniors. Okay. So they knew the game, and we had a couple of games against other colleges, and it was very exciting for me to be part of that and be part of a team playing with people who knew how to play. Yeah. So the first year at sixth form, I'd be younger age group, and then the second year we'd be the oldest, so we'd organise it. And after that, a group of us decided that summer in the school holidays to enter a team in the local summer league.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So probably took the initiative for yourselves to be like, we want to play.
Exactly, yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. So that was really good fun. We played at Lancing College, and a couple of teams we played to were men's teams in the Sussex League. Yeah. One of them was Crawley Jets, as they were back then. And I think we lost every game because we were all pretty little. We had one guy who was good, who had played for Crystal Palace Juniors, or who was playing for Crystal Palace Juniors. So he would score most of our points. But a couple of guys in this Crawley team we played against said, "Oh, if you want to come and play, you come and play with our team," because they were mainly, they seemed ancient at the time. They were probably late 20s, 30s.
How does that feel now when you have your pickup games and you've got lads who are 18, 19 from unis and whatnot? Yeah. And then you're referring to guys in their late 20s as ancient back then.
Yeah.
It's not aging well for you, dude, is it?
No, this is true. The circle of life. So me and a couple of my other friends, we went and played we joined Crawley and we played Sussex County Div 1 for a couple of years. Lost. We weren't a good team, but it was good fun and it was nice. It was good learning experience to play against grown-ups.
Yeah, of course.
I left, went to play at uni at that point, so I went up to London, played at South Bank. But all during this time, so all during the last years of school and sixth form, and the year before I went to uni, me and a group of friends would go and watch the Bears. By this point, they'd moved to Worthing.
Yep.
So they were playing at Worthing Leisure Centre. Back in at first they were in the top league.
Yeah.
They had a really good season, got to the championship finals at Wembley. I had Alan Cunningham playing for them. He was, again, one of the big stars of British basketball for years and years. And but the following year, Cunningham left. I think he went to Portsmouth. They got a guy to replace him, Dale Shackelford, who was another American, really good player, but they were not as good. Had a poor season, relatively speaking, ran out of money. End of that season went bust, and that was it. So
that sucks.
Yeah, it's pretty devastating actually as a fan, and there'll be loads of British basketball fans who've experienced this. Team you put your efforts into supporting, just all of a sudden it's gone because they've lost their sponsors or they've lost their venue. And at the time you just think you feel helpless, and it's like a big part of your life at that point. If you support a team, and we used to go home and away games. We'd go on the players' coach to go to away games, go and sit in a little tiny gym where there's just one row of seats up the side. That was. I remember feeling pretty devastated about that when they said, right, that's it. Because at the time you don't think they're going to be coming back. You think that's it. You just run out of. All the clubs just run out of money, and nobody's.
Especially when that is your point of British basketball and actually being able to experience what you're seeing on the television, what you're hearing about NBA and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Like, this is finally you or something where you feel like it's part of you.
Yeah.
Because you're enjoying it so much, and you're watching the players, you're watching the coaches. It's your passion, wasn't it? And
it's your major, as you say, it's your major point of reference as to what's going on in the league.
Yeah.
And without that, you're a spectator, but you don't have any skin in the game.
Really. No, of course not.
So as it happens, they were out of the league for a year. Then they started up again. They got back their two Americans from the previous year, Dale Shackelford, Billy Hungrecker, and they joined the second tier.
Right.
So I think it was called the National League at that point, and the top league was the Championship or whatever it was, BBL. So we got involved again, and that they were sponsored by a company called Financial Matters, and their corporate colour was pink. So they gave anyone helping out all the stewards. At the time, I was doing the music, so I sit on the behind the tables with the commissioner and the timekeeper and scorer and statistician.
Wearing a pink top?
Wearing this V-neck pink jumper with a little residential financial...
How deep was the V?
It wasn't like Euro, check me out.
Right,
deep.
okay, cool. I'm just trying to build this image in my head of you sitting there with
very 80s
music.
golf jumper.
Oh, wow, okay, that could be a lot worse.
It couldn't have been a lot worse. It could have been a little bit worse. So I would sit there, and during timeouts, I put my mixtape in and press play. And
what would have been on this mixtape? I'm not asking, track 1 to 20, but what would be kind of like your go-to to be like, right, I need to make a difference here.
Well,
I need to pump up the crowd.
Yeah, recurring theme. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was quite into music, but I
feel like you're dancing around this question. Fear of shame.
I am a little bit. So I remember my first tape I did, I had recorded as Curtis Blow, rapper who had done a song about basketball, and they used to use that at the start of, I think, or during the Channel 4 coverage.
Right, okay. So you're taking inspo.
So I'd recorded that off the TV, so I had a really low quality version of that on my little C90 cassette.
You're talking a whole other language to me. I'm not gonna lie right now.
Yeah, it's very old fashioned tech.
I thought what was it, infrared? I thought that was old school, but this is really old school now, isn't it?
I had some Hall and Oates.
Okay.
The BBC for a couple of years they had NBA coverage
Right.
once a week, Saturday night after match of the day, just during playoffs, where they would show a playoff game, and that was like Nirvana when they did that.
Yeah.
And I think the opening music for that was by a group called Crosby, Stills and Nash or something.
Right.
I didn't know what the music was. I said to my dad, "Have you any idea what that music is?" And this is before the internet, all right? And somehow he went into work and phoned the BBC and got put through to however many people, and they told him what this music was and who it was by. So
some flex, by the way,
that's
to be able to do
pretty
that.
Cool.
Like respect on that one.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed. And then I bought this album and this track was on there. So that was on my initial mixtape. Anyway, a lot of songs on there which weren't particularly, they were all basketball rated in my head.
Okay, yeah.
But they weren't necessarily get the crowd going or something that
well,
the
to be fair,
cheerleaders
you were
could dance
bestowed
to.
that honour. It's up to you. If they haven't given you a thing to stick by.
Yeah, it is.
And also someone needs to do it.
But know your audience, right?
I mean, well, yeah. I mean, I would hope it would kind of changed a little bit as you went through the season, perhaps. And know some people cheering, maybe getting a bit of a dance, a bit of moving going.
Well, so yeah. Anyway, I'm I'm sitting on the commissioner's table in
Pink V-neck.
my little pink V-neck mixtape, playing songs to.
Did you have your earpiece at the time as well? Sorry.
No.
So that came later. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to build a picture.
Playing songs to sway to, but not really songs to get you going.
Right.
And one of the cheerleaders came over, and obviously at this time I'm like super self-conscious and don't want to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And she came over and said, "Is this your music?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, and my friends are in the stands behind watching what's going on. And she said, "Oh, have you got any other music?" I said, "Oh no." She said, "Oh well, we need something with a bit high tempo, so we can."
How slow were you going?
Well, it wasn't smoking jammies, but it was.
Tell you what, that's going to be something I'm going to make you do for a segment on here. You need to redo the mixtape from back in the day, just so we could see what you were working with.
So
I don't imagine she was mean about it though.
She wasn't mean. Okay. She probably thought, "Who's this little weirdo in his pink top? Let's not make him cry in front of his friends."
Why is he playing really sad slow songs? Well, is he okay?
What's wrong in his life that he's so sad?
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
I feel bad now.
So anyway.
Right, sorry, yeah.
As a catalyst for better things.
Yeah.
So let's put it that way. So, so after that, I kind of upped my game, up my tempo.
Right, okay.
Up my average beats per minute of my mixtape, and that was all good.
No more complaints.
No more complaints.
That's what we like, dude. Improvement.
The team went, won their first, 15 games or whatever. So this is first time back in the league. Just breezing through everyone until we're playing Tower Hamlets, who at the time bottom of the league. Don't think they'd won a game, or maybe they'd won one. Tower Hamlets eventually became London Towers,
right? Okay.
So turned into a big thing. And it's an away game, so I still remember being in the coach. I can't remember if it's one coach, it might have been the coach, supporters coach, players anyway. We're driving through this part of London. It's not the loveliest part. Oh, well, I mean, we drove through it yesterday when we went to see Lions, and it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's just
still love
it's
it,
just
like-
a part of London that's got big roads running through it.
Yeah.
So we get there and it's in a little, I can't remember what the leisure centre's called, but it's a little community leisure centre.
Yeah.
No tiered seating or anything, so it's basically go and get yourself a chair off that stack of chairs and stick it on the sideline somewhere. So there are probably 50 people there.
Right.
Most of them would be Worthing fans, probably a bit of family and friends from Tower Hamlets. And it's a really close game. It shouldn't be, because Worthing are going to be unbeaten. They're really trying to go through a whole season unbeaten. Tower Hamlets were near the bottom of the league. But it's really close backwards and forwards. And it gets the last few seconds and Tower Hamlets got the ball. I think they're one down, and this little guy, probably about the same age I was at times, so probably 17, 18, gets fouled, gets 2 shots, time's gone. So he's got 2 shots. Little guy playing for Tower Hamlets to inflict the first defeat of the season on Brighton Bears.
You know, when he stood up for the shots, as a fan, because you can sometimes see if they're going a little bit, if they're wavering a little bit, you can see it. But when they're bouncing the ball, when they're going through their setup, could you see this guy was quite locked in, and that he was going to, or did you have it in your mind one could just go off to the right, or one could just bounce out?
They were down the far end, so he was shooting the end opposite to where we were sitting. So he had his back to us, and you asked me the other day how would you feel in that situation, trying to make 2 free throws with people watching you in a really crucial time. It must be petrifying.
Yeah,
unless you're used to it. This kid's swish, game over. And
he put that crown on his head. He knew what he was doing.
He balls of steel,
literally.
And oddly enough, or coincidentally enough, he ended up going to South Bank University. Yeah, same year as me. One of the best players I've ever played with, Dylan Cole, his name was.
So basically, you just followed him to uni.
Just stalked him. Yeah, made him apologise for stopping Worthing being undefeated for a season. And
the mixtape you would have made him. Sorry,
he didn't ever ask me. Although,
yeah, go on.
When we're part of the university team and we would travel all over the country in coach, and I would always provide the music for these coach journeys.
Would you?
Yeah,
fair.
So that was an ongoing theme through my.
So what was the conversation like when you said to him?
He was really pleased, because obviously there's only like 50 people in the world had seen that, and I was one of them.
Yeah, fair. I imagine that's quite a cool moment for him, especially considering the situation it was where they were bottom of the table. Obviously, Worthing were going for undefeated, and he stepped up at, what would you say, 18?
Yeah.
17, 18, that kind of young 18, age before uni, and just done it.
Yeah.
Like, done it.
He was proper player. I remember, because by the time we'd started uni, Tower Hamlets had become London and had moved up to the top level.
Yeah.
So they were playing Carlsberg League or whatever it was back then. And he was starting on this Division 1 team, playing top level, playing against the best players in the country. And one game he played against Alton Byrd. And I can't remember whether that time Alton Byrd was playing, whether they were Guildford or whether they were Kingston or who they were, which team he was playing for. But Alton Byrd said to him, come and play for my team. We'll give you a contract and I'll turn you into the best guard in the country. So Alton Byrd thought he was had this much potential.
Yeah.
But he didn't want to do it. Dylan didn't want to do it. He wanted to stay, do his studies, and I think he lived with his granddad in Tower Hamlets, so the close-knit, his granddad used to go everywhere with him. But yeah, so Dylan was the main guy on our uni team. We had another guy called David Lavinier who had been England schools captain and played for Brixton.
So sorry to interrupt, but it must be quite a contrast from, trying to get people to play with you and trying, get enter yourselves into the summer league of people who are just trying to get back, to all of a sudden you're going to university where you've got pretty talented players to play alongside.
Yeah.
It's such a contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
How was it going into that? Obviously
completely intimidating.
Yeah.
Because I'd played, I don't know, 5 games at sixth form, probably 10 games summer league and a season at Crawley.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to practice and try and get on a team with these guys who I pay money to go and watch.
Yeah, exactly. That's mad. When you put it like that, it's actually mad.
Yeah. So I'm from little provincial mid-Sussex where it's all trees and fields, and then living in South London, college at Elephant and Castle, playing with all these kids who've come from teams in East London and Brixton and Crystal Palace, proper basketball pedigree.
Yeah.
I hadn't had a day's coaching in my life. So the only thing I'd learnt was by watching people play.
Yeah.
So I'd never had a coach say, no, dribble like this, hold the ball like this, move your body like that. Not had a day of it. And suddenly I'm on team with these guys. And it was awesome. It was,
yeah, I bet.
It was fantastic. We had
it must have been something you were hoping, you may have thought would never happen like that, with what you had as basketball around you.
Yeah.
To have that opportunity to be there and actually see this, it must have been quite a bit of a surreal experience.
Yeah,
at times.
it was. It was equal parts intimidating and exciting.
Yeah.
Because you go to college first year, you go to tryouts and you've got no idea what to expect. So I could have gone probably to university up the road and we'd had a rubbish team. But it just so happened that at this one we had a guy who's starting on professional team Division 1. We had a guy who had just come up from England captain, was playing National League. We had a guy who played French juniors, another guy who played Spanish juniors. So everyone, with the exception of me, had really good basketball coaching up to that point. But I made the team, so as you know,
oi.
Yeah. So that was nice, and it was awesome. We had a really good team, and I think the first 2 years we won the national title. I think first year we were a polytechnic, so we hadn't become a university.
Okay.
Second year we were university, but they were really good memories for me going around the country, mainly watching the other guys on my team do really well against.
Well, I was going to ask about game time. What was you kind of able to gather? Because obviously you've got some very, very talented lads you're playing with who've got a bit of pedigree to them. Yeah,
so if we were in a close game, I'll be watching.
Yeah.
If we were beating someone by a lot, then you get on the court. And that's how it is. Certainly at no point did I ever think, oh, why am I not out there?
Yeah, which is important to be when you're a part of a team like that.
Yeah.
Because as much as it would be nice to kind of have that moment, and I'm going to ask you, mate, did you get any moments at all where you feel, where it was a play or something, but at least you had that mentality of no, because I know what I'm getting to be a part of it is special. I'm watching players who are doing really, really well, and I'm learning from that, and I'm picking that up within myself, and being able to still be a part of those things. As you say, travelling about. Yeah. You're not going to do that otherwise.
In the first game we played, we were at home, no idea who we were playing against. I started, no idea why I started. Dylan liked me. I think because he saw I was a fan, he maybe thought I was a bit better than I was. So he started me in the first game, and I actually got the first basket of our team.
Yeah. Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that...
Whether you should have been starting or not, doesn't matter. The fact is you were and you got first points. Like,
as highlights go... You
started that momentum upwards.
That was about it as from a personal level in terms of achieving anything on the court. But it was really good fun. I remember one game, because we weren't a very big team, but we had these 2 guys play guard. We had another guy called Jason Graham who played at Brixton as well.
Yeah.
Possibly at that point the only guy in Brixton who used to have a Elvis belt buckle.
Bold.
Yeah. And we just had some really good guards,
Yeah.
and we would just shoot teams out of the gym, irrespective of how tall they were. And it was real fun to be a part of that. And I think we played Oxford, I think we played Cambridge, we'd go to Portsmouth. The only team we couldn't beat, strange enough, was Brighton.
What?
First 2 years, first year, Brighton had a couple of guys who played at Brighton Bears.
Yeah.
I think Alan Prescott was one of them, a really good player. I think he was also London area, but we couldn't beat them. And then the second year, they had a guy who I think I might be getting confused here. I think his dad was part of the management of Portsmouth basketball, who were really good at the time.
Right, okay.
I'm going to say his name is Alex Byrne. I don't know whether that was Alex Byrne playing.
If not, shout out to Alex Byrne.
Yeah,
I
think he's still involved. I
Right.
think he's still active on the Facebook groups and whatnot. But
Yeah.
whoever this guy was, and he was going up against Dylan and David, and he was just really, really good.
Technically good, or was he kind of getting in their heads that you remember, or was he just...
He was just a baller. He just wouldn't back down, hit a shot, and on that day he was too good for them, too good for us. So that was a bit annoying having
Did you get put in that game, or was that one of those ones where you're like, I'm all right sitting here actually because this is going to be...
Don't remember actually.
No.
I remember it was flipping cold. I think one of the games was in Eastbourne, and I remember because the guys knew us from Brighton, and we were going in the coach, and they were like, "Oh, you live in the countryside. You live right out in the sticks." And at the time, you kind of think, "No, well, I'm not a bumpkin. We've got shops and we've got concrete." So I was slightly offended by that, but it was quite interesting to hear what Londoners thought of just driving down a couple of miles of road where you've got trees and stuff.
What happened with the team? Did they get another championship?
I don't think they did. Obviously nothing to do with me. And it would have been the last year for... some of them would just been on a 3-year course. Mine was 4th because it had the sandwich year in the middle. Pretty sure they didn't get another win, as in another championship. And then I went back final year, and it was mainly different team. We still got to the finals. We didn't get to the actual final, but it was nowhere near where we were before.
Yeah.
We didn't win any. I don't think we won anything. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we didn't win anything. But that was good. It was good fun.
Was you playing more in the final year?
No, because I came back. Most of the team had changed. The guy who was coaching was another one of the players. I didn't know him.
Right, okay.
So I didn't. I remember in the last game, and I don't know if this was the final or not. We were playing against a team who had a lot of like Div 1, Div 2 players. Yeah, really good. A guy called Garnet Gayle, who played a lot of years in top level. Can't remember which teams he played for actually. He was really good, and the coach hadn't put me in for any of the game. So it's coming up towards the end. Garnet Gayle is killing everyone. So he's big, strong guy, really good with the ball, and we find it hard to stop him. And I think the coach wanted to get me in, and there's about 2 minutes left. I think we were still quite close, and he said to me, "Do you want to go in and see if you can stop Garnet Gayle?"
Well, that's nice of him to offer that to you.
Yeah. So I'm like, I said, "No, I don't think so." So, and there was no chance because he would have absolutely destroyed me.
He might have been a bit more tired though.
Yeah. Anyway.
Not saying you would have done bits, but you could have used a little bit more of your fresher legs.
I would have been way out of my league. And I think that was it. That was the end, the last game of my 4th year. Yeah. And I say it wasn't 4th year was nowhere near as much fun as the first couple. But the first couple were real highlights in terms of my playing time.
Yeah, of course. You can see when you talk about it, you're like, it's just, even though obviously you're saying you weren't obviously a starter, but you've still got that memories and still kind of got that enjoyment that you have out of it. That's still, even now when you speak about it, you can see it picks you up thinking about how good a time you had.
Yeah, because who wants to hear? No, I mean, I don't have this conversation with anyone, so it is nice to think about it. Yeah, but it was good times. And that coincided still with, in terms of watching basketball, Brighton Bears, they were doing super well. They back in the top league. They had a really strong team. Alan Cunningham, who I spoke about earlier, he'd come back. He was coaching. They had some of the top British players of that era came to Worthing, just the little leisure centre. So there's Colin Irish, Cleve Lewis, Mike Spade, who sadly died quite recently. And they had Kilpatrick Wells, who's a big American guy who played at Portsmouth as well. Herman Hareed, who's a real crowd favourite, real dunker, who's another American. Steve Nelson, who I think is still local. He played Bears for a long time and then coached them as well. So they, for 3 years, they were one of the top teams in British basketball at the top level, and they won the national championship playoffs 3 years in a row at Wembley.
Ain't bad,
I think first year they had won the league as well, so they were favourites.
Yeah.
I think second year they were runners-up in the league, so they're still one of the favourites, and they won it again. Third year, I think they'd finished 7th in the league, so they hadn't had a good season, just scraped into the playoffs. I don't know who they knocked out in the first round, but then they got to the semis, won that, and then they won the final as well. It was a real kind of Disney-type story. To get the three-peat. I don't think it's ever been done again, or maybe it has, but I don't remember it.
No.
So those were fantastic times from being a basketball fan perspective. And it used to be rocking at Worthing Leisure Centre. We'd have to get there really early, try and get seats. You'd all crammed in these little bleachers. At that point, they had seats both sides of the court and behind one of the baskets. So it was super busy. I was no longer doing the music at that point, so just a fan, no pink sweatshirt.
Did you not fancy going back there and just saying, I am the original, just in case you need me?
No.
Start bopping into Hot Stepper as you go through.
It was just fun seeing it. It was a real exciting time to be a fan of that club. And those days are long gone, unfortunately, in terms of the level of play and the level of interest. But for now, who knows? Who knows?
And that's how basketball became such a big part of Matt's life. Thanks for joining us for the first episode of Hoop Genes. Next time, Matt will be asking me about my own basketball journey and what drew me to the game.
In future episodes, we'll be bringing you conversations with players, coaches, owners and volunteers from across British basketball, sharing their stories and experiences. Until then, you can find us at hoopgenes.com, where we're sharing more stories from the British basketball community. Thanks for listening.